It's just an orgy of, in my view, narcissistic, self-indulgent, deliberately shocking stuff. He's just on an ever-deteriorating campaign to be as vulgar and offensive as he possibly can. Am I missing something?
He's doing what pop stars have done for decades, which is trying to shock as a means to get publicity. And of course, it's pretty successful. I mean, we're talking about him at the moment. But it's striking that it's sort of very unoriginal. I mean, all the stuff he's doing, the sort of over-sexualized stuff, the sort of satanic stuff. Madonna did this 40 years ago. Pop stars have done this and more for decades now. I think the only thing that Sam Smith has got sort of going for him on this, and the thing that actually is making people notice him on this, is that, first of all, he keeps sort of throwing these bollards in the way of everyone by changing his alleged gender all the time. You know,
okay,
he came out some years ago as...
Why do you say, James? I'll bring you in.
He came out many years ago as gay, and then he said he was actually gender queer, and then he said he was non-binary, and he said he didn't know what it meant. Of course he didn't, because there's no such thing. But he said that they were going to... he said that he thought that he was gender queer, and he didn't know what it meant, but he said that he would explain it someday when he did know. And I sort of think, if you're going to make everyone else distort the language, you should know what you're talking about first. So he does that to get publicity, obviously. And the other thing he does is he does this sort of... taking all his clothes off stuff. And the thing that makes it different from other people is that when, I don't know, Justin Timberlake or Rihanna or someone stripped down, they do so because they look good, like their bodies look good. Sam Smith is like pudgy and very ugly. And so people look at it and he looks ridiculous. And the problem is that he's saying, don't ridicule me. But it's hard not to ridicule people when they present themselves as ridiculous.
What are you talking about?
Okay, on that point, I completely agree. Why say don't ridicule me when you deliberately make yourself look ridiculous?
No, that is disgusting. That is a completely disgusting...
Well, it is disgusting, yeah. We do find it disgusting.
No, what you're saying is
Why? We're allowed to find it disgusting.
No, you are not.
Yes,
you
I am.
can't keep commenting on what people look like all the time.
Yes, I can. If they're going to dress like that on a stage in front of millions of people around the world, absolutely I can.
Thank you for getting the pronoun correct. I really appreciate that. Listen,
did I?
Douglas, yes, you did.
Well, have you called me mine?
Hottest man in the world, Piers, according to some and yourself.
Yeah.
Listen, the Pope recently said they completely accept every gender identity and that everyone is a child.
Why should anyone be compelled to use a pronoun from someone who's changed their own identity 3 times in 3 years?
I just want to go back as well.
How do you keep up with it?
Actually, I think it's very important to note that other pop stars have done this, including Lewis Capaldi, who recently did a campaign where he was naked on a billboard, and there were nowhere near as many vile comments at Lewis Capaldi's body. The only reason there's a problem for Sam doing it is because you aren't happy with his gender identity because it makes you feel insecure.
No, I don't care about his gender identity. I just don't feel I can be compelled to use pronouns. I don't care about that.
That's fine. Don't use them if you don't want to. That's wrong, but that's totally
you just told me I had to.
No, I think you should, but if you don't want to,
so I don't have
to. Piers, shut up.
Well, I'm not Piers. I'm hottest man alive.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so you're changing your name now. You're no longer...
But my point about Sam Smith is it's just an orgy of, in my view, narcissistic, self-indulgent, deliberately shocking stuff. And Douglas has got a point. He looks terrible.
Okay, so...
Why would you do this?
You're friends with Ozzy Osbourne, right?
Yeah.
And Ozzy Osbourne ate a bat's head on stage.
Yeah.
That could be considered vulgar. I mean, he basically
Ozzy Osbourne never did anything like this.
He started the COVID pandemic.
You can't seriously think
about Sam Smith getting their tits out.
You can't seriously think what we're looking at here is actually anything other than ridiculous.
No, I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think it's brilliant. I think it's sexy. I think it's inspirational.
You think that's sexy?
That is, and that's someone
Do you think what we're looking at right now is sexy?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
Would you shag it?
Would I shag it, did you say?
Well, there's a question.
Yeah, absolutely I would have sex with them.
Really?
Thank you for asking.
You're a braver
would you,
man
Douglas?
than me.
Because it sounds like you're a little bit too obsessed with them, if I'm honest with you.
No, I can assure you I'm not. I know what I like, and I don't like fat, blubbery show-offs who look hideous dressed in lacy pants with their fat spilling out everywhere and doing it in front of as many people as possible to gain attention. I just don't find that sexy. I'm old-fashioned.
I have an ongoing theory that the world has gone nuts, but what I can't work out is whether it's just because we're aware of more stuff which is nuts than we ever used to be, or do you actually feel that it is going nuts?
Yes, absolutely, it is going nuts. I mean, we sort of touched on it in the show tonight when I was talking about norms and the attitude, I think, of the conservative people in this country about what disturbs them on the left. I would say it's the fringe of the left, but you know, the problem with the left is that the people in the center who don't even believe what the fringe are believing don't stand up to them. They don't shout them down publicly, so it just becomes, it's very bad for Democrats, which I don't think is a good thing. I mostly vote for Democrats. I can't remember the last time I voted for a Republican. But the norms that Trump trounced on, that's a very valid point, one I've made a million times, and we all saw it in plain sight. I mean, norms of the law and democracy and answering subpoenas and respecting elections and not trying to have a coup in America. I mean, it went past norms. But their view is, okay, those are terrible norms perhaps to trample, but your norms have to do with like life itself.
Right,
like,
biological sex.
Exactly.
I mean, we had that debate tonight, and it's kind of baffling to me that we are actually having to debate these things.
That is what they're saying. I've talked to these people all the time, but because I'm out in the country all the time, and they're like, you know, we're not all crazy. We just don't feel comfortable. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. A lot of them say to me, what you don't get about us and Donald Trump is we don't like him either. We just see him as a bulwark against something that's even nuttier. Because as we know in America, people really don't vote for who they like. They vote for who they hate the least.
Most people in the polls think there's a real problem with climate change. I'm one of them. No arguments with that. But most people, in fact, the vast majority now, are absolutely sick and tired of what Just Stop Oil are doing. They think it's puerile, pathetic, and it's not advancing the cause one iota. Nobody is walking around going, God, they've wrecked the snooker. Do you support what happened at the snooker?
Of course I support what happened at the snooker.
Why? Why are you laughing?
Am I laughing?
Yeah, you are. You're smirking. And so was the guy who did the stunt at the snooker. And here's my problem. It's all a bit of a game for you guys. You regularly get seen smirking and laughing. It's all a bit of fun. It's not fun for the people whose lives you're ruining.
Piers, when the last IPCC report was released, and that's basically the sound of the world's climate scientists banging their heads against the desks, basically, in despair that no one's listening to them. That made page 11 of the Daily Mail underneath two women arguing over their geraniums, right? As a result of what happened on Monday, our demand has been on the front of every...
No, your demand wasn't on the front page. That idiot was on the front page, spraying a
millions
snooker table with orange paint.
Millions of conversations have been elicited, and if even a tenth of them draw attention to the fact that the British government are ploughing ahead with over 100 new fossil fuel licences, opening new coal mines in the middle of the worst crisis that we've ever seen, then it's a win. Don't you think?
So you think... No, I don't. I don't think it's a win at all. I think it's a massive lose, actually. I think what you're doing is alienating a public who might well be persuaded, because they show it in the polls, to come on your side. But at the moment, they think you're a bunch of annoying twerps wrecking their lives.
The fact of the matter is that we're seeing that the only real leverage that normal people have is through disruptive tactics, right? The nurses know it, the train drivers know it, the junior doctors know it.
So why don't you go where the real polluters are? Why don't you go to Beijing?
Because we need to get our own house in order before we go around the world telling people what to do.
You are moral cowards. What are the CO2 emissions for this country, and what are they for China and Russia and India?
Per capita, the emissions...
Not per capita, what are the emissions?
China's emissions...
What percentage of the emissions in the world come from China?
Using childish maths is silly.
Childish maths?
Yes.
They're statistical facts.
Because, no, a country that's bigger than UK has more...
What percentage of the global emissions come from China?
Are you talking about production emissions or consumption emissions?
Just give me the emissions.
You are actually...
Those are two very different figures.
Look at you guys. You're so expert in every part of this.
I can tell you.
You don't want to tell me.
No, I want to tell you.
You don't want to tell me because you know the answer.
You know why you're asking this question? Because you already want the answer. What I am saying is China is 20 times bigger in population than the UK, so its emissions are 20 times bigger. But our investments are 15 times.
So when are you going to Beijing?
When you go to Sudan and Pakistan.
I'll fly you to Beijing.
When you go to Sudan
I'll fly you to
Pakistan.
Beijing.
Can we agree?
I'll put you guys on a plane tomorrow to Beijing.
Yes.
I'll pay, right? You're going to go and protest?
I will go with you.
You're not, are you? You're not, because you're moral cowards.
What will it actually take?
You'd rather go and chuck paint
stop
at
being
paintings.
such a gammony windbag and listen.
I'm not a gammony windbag.
Oh my God.
I just think you guys are honestly moronic. I actually do wonder what kind of humanity would be left if people like you were the only ones left. Honestly, it would be like a place. I mean, a place where you're not allowed pets. A place where
pathetic.
People like you are running the country. I would literally rather die. Anyway, it's been lovely catching up. Thank you both very much indeed for your time. Swimmer Riley Gaines made global headlines when she tied with athlete Leah Thomas, who's a transgender swimmer. This is the person, of course, who's been dominating now women's swimming in America, despite having competed unsuccessfully as a biological male. Well, unlike many people in the same position, afraid of vilification, abuse and cancellation, Riley spoke out about it. She took a stand for women's athletes across the world. And as a result of that stand, she was last week physically assaulted and abused and howled at after being invited to speak at San Francisco State University.
I'm speaking for every female athlete, not just myself. I'm done competing. This isn't about me, but I know what's at stake if someone doesn't use their voice. I have a younger sister. I just got married. I can only hope one day that I have a daughter, and I can't imagine being in this position and not fighting for them. But also I'm fighting for the present female athletes, Leah Thomas's teammates even, who have their voices suppressed. They see what happens to me when I go to San Francisco State, and they don't want to put themselves in a position where speaking out would garner that for them.
Leah Thomas today tweeted the following: "It breaks my heart to see trans kids across the country lose out on these opportunities. During a time of anti-trans backlash, the trans community needs explicit protections from discrimination in order to live our lives free and equally. All trans kids deserve the opportunity to compete and play in the sports they love without compromising who they are." Now, my problem with that, and I think you picked up on this as well in your response to Leah Thomas, is, well, what about fairness and equality for the women? For biological females, because clearly what Leah Thomas, a 6'4" biological male who did not compete successfully against men, but is now demolishing women in national championships, clearly that is unfair. Now, I want trans athletes to have fairness and equality. I want them to be able to play sport, but not at the expense of women's rights.
Exactly. The first sentence you said, I believe it was, Leah Thomas quoted saying, "It breaks my heart to see trans kids lose out on opportunities." You're exactly right. Replace that with the word woman. Does it still break Thomas's heart to see women lose out on opportunities? Because that's exactly what's happening.
Social media influencer Andrew Tate, the former professional kickboxer, and his brother have been locked up for 3 months in a Romanian jail over allegations of human trafficking and rape. They've not been charged, they've now been released on house arrest. They remain under investigation. Well, joining us now is Andrew Tate's lawyer, Tina Glandian. Tina, thank you very much indeed for joining us again on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Where are we with this case? Because it does seem very strange that there is still no sign of any charges or of them being released.
So we're certainly a lot better off today than the last time I was on your show. As you recall, back then, the Tate brothers were still detained in a Romanian jail cell. Now they have been released on house arrest. So relative to that, they're doing much better now, and we've taken a big step in the right direction. However, this month actually marks the 1 year since this investigation first began. And the fact that they're still on house arrest and the fact that their restraint and their liberty is still restrained and they're not free to move about the way anybody else would while this very prolonged investigation continues is obviously substantially troubling and frustrating to them. So even though a few weeks ago we took a big step in the right direction, we're still not all the way there, and we're looking forward to the day that the Romanian authorities decide that they won't be that they conclude the investigation and decide that they won't be seeking an indictment in this case.
What are the rules of the house arrest? I only asked because before I came on air, I noticed that Tristan Tate tweeted me several times about tonight's show, actually. Is that him? Are they allowed to tweet personally, the two brothers?
They are. The only real restrictions that they have, other than the fact that they're confined to their house, is that they can't communicate with either the two other women who also, like them, are on house arrest, who are being investigated alongside them in this matter, and any other witnesses who have been mentioned in the file. Beyond that, there are no other restrictions as far as communication with friends or family or having visitors, as well as social media activity.
How are they actually doing themselves? I mean, it's a weird condition to be living under house arrest.
It is. Again, it's relative to where they were a few weeks ago. They are doing much better, of course. However, the 3 months in jail certainly took a toll on them. And I know Andrew has told me he right now has a lot of trouble sleeping. He can't sleep for more than 2 hours a night. And, you know, it really took a toll. So they're struggling with the process and what they've been through, but they are now focused mostly on just regaining, they believe, a strong body is a strong mind. They're back to their training and fitness and health and focusing on those things and trusting their attorneys in the process to play out and for them to eventually clear their names.
Advertising is supposed to shove products down our throats. We all know that. At their best, adverts make us smile, laugh, even cry. They make us associate brands with feelings so that we'll buy them. That's the deal. That's how it's been for generations. But there's a new movement in advertising. They're no longer shoving their products down our throats, just their identity politics. And the only feeling they're inspiring is extreme irritation. Well, Bud Light's the most popular beer in America, and for reasons which are not entirely clear to anybody at the moment, they recently teamed up with Dylan Mulvaney. She was someone who identified until very recently as a gay man, then non-binary, and now apparently is a woman, and is an influencer who makes kitsch videos about womanhood and being a girl from the vantage point of, to be honest, a biological man. Many women were rightly outraged when Nike used the very same trans influencer to advertise sports bras, even though Dylan Mulvaney has no breasts. And these are not isolated incidents of corporate insanity. We had ads which promote taking the knee, ads which seem to promote mastectomies, ads which promote Black Lives Matter, ads with pregnant men, ads which wrap every single imaginable product, merchandise or service in the rainbow pride flag. And whether you support those causes or not, many of them I do, the common theme is a business promoting a worldview that's kind of irrelevant and unfamiliar to most of the people currently buying their product. The most famous example of this was Gillette, the men's shaving company, which used to advertise like this.
Contour Plus with lubricating strip. The best a man can get.
Oh, I made you proud to be a man, and that was the problem, unfortunately. Can't be proud to be a man anymore. Can't be proud to be masculine. No. Nothing laudable about a man who works hard, makes money, has a beautiful wife, raises great kids, and wins. No. Gillette thought there was a massive problem with this, so they launched, in the light of Me Too, a man-shaming attack ad instead. Take a look at this.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Toxic masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long.
I remember that ad coming out, and I've been a long-time Gillette customer. These cheeks, most nights, get the old Gillette treatment, and it makes me feel like a man, masculine, proud to be a man. And suddenly I had to feel ashamed. I had to feel like I was a monster unless I could prove otherwise. Why would Gillette do that? Why would it make their millions of male customers be ashamed to be a man? Well, the reaction, as I predicted in the column the next day, was a disaster. I think it cost them $9 billion over the next 6 months before eventually they just did a reverse ferret and went straight back to the old style advertising, because men actually wanted to feel good about being a man, and that is still allowed. Just as Budweiser, clearly panicked by the backlash to their use of Dylan Mulvaney, have suddenly released a patriotic ad with wild horses, flags, landmarks, and a lot of burly men. Well, they played with the virtue signalling fire and their fingers were duly burned. The message to the advertisers is clear. Just shut up and sell us your tat.